Finding life a bit complex? Confusing? Aware that your old strategies aren't working? Why not ask Pam and Marilyn? This is the Irreverent Therapists, and we're here to add some clarity, humor, and a bit of what might be considered blasphemy to your day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Irreverent Therapists. I'm Pam Hodeling, and actually with me today is not Marilyn Bradford. She's flying home from Houston, Texas today and can't be on, but I am so glad we have a great guest today, Heather Smith. Hey, Heather.
Hi, Pam. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here on your show.
So Heather is an access consciousness facilitator, which any of you who've been listening a lot know that Marilyn and I are too. But she's also someone, she's worked with a variety of different energy modalities for over 22 years. She likes using the transformation of energies in her body and life to heal herself. And she knows her life experience and the power of choice and question is able to transform what most people consider unchangeable. So we have Heather here today for our topic, Have You Noticed You Keep Going Backwards? So first I'm going to read everybody what the topic is. Do you find yourself looping back to your past, replaying events over and over again? Have you ever felt captive to the trauma and drama of your life? What if you could come out of all that to a sense of ease you've never imagined possible? So this is what we're going to be talking about today. Heather is someone who works a lot with post-traumatic stress disorder and using all these different tools she's kind of been exposed to over many years to assist people with that. So Heather, again, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. And thanks for having me to talk about this topic, which, you know, a lot of people kind of shy away from topics like this that can be so intense. And one of the things that I just so love about you and Marilyn both is your irreverence and your sense of humor and your ability to take, you know, what could be a really heavy duty topic and bring some lightheartedness to it. And that's something I really enjoy doing as well with the people that I work with and in my own life, even with topics like post-traumatic stress.
Right. Well, so how did this, you know, how did you get this being something that you're focusing on in the work you do?
My father is a Vietnam veteran. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, growing up in my household, there was a whole lot of intensity going on. And, you know, like many veterans, it's something he would never talk about. And yet we could see in his actions, in his voice, and in how he was every day, you know, that it was something that was deeply affecting. And he had a lot of anger, and he was just a really intense guy, you know. So you know, it was hard to know as a little kid what to do with that or even know what was going on since he would never talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah. And yet he would, you know, break out in these yelling and screaming rages at the hillside, you know, or at the sky or whatever. It was interesting because he didn't directly take it out on us. He wasn't violent towards us physically. He didn't, I don't know. He didn't like purposely try to take it out on my brothers and I and my mom. But he just had such a level of intensity going on all the time with anger and upset and obvious turmoil. So that was an everyday.
And that seems, I mean, as you're describing that, I mean, to me, what I'm thinking is that's a fairly traumatic way to grow up. Is around someone who can explode any minute, even if it's not directed at you. So is part of what got you into looking at post-traumatic stress kind of your own experience with growing up and looking to change things?
Totally. So for me, I was, I've always been very sensitive. I've always been very aware of energy. I could tell my dad was angry well before I got home, that, oh God, he's going to be in a bad mood. There's all sorts of things that I was aware of. And so having that level of intensity delivered around me or at me, day in and day out did become a trauma for me. And it took a long time to be willing to really look at that and go, oh, this isn't my normal. And this doesn't have to be, I don't have to live with this. I don't have to be at the effect of other people's anger and upset, because I definitely carried it with me, out into the world and my interactions with other people, and really being a people pleaser and, doing a lot to avoid upset and anger in other people or even in myself.
Right.
It created a lot of judgment about upset and anger and also not knowing how to handle it.
Right. So, like what I think of is, everything that Marilyn and I talk about on this show, having the access tools gives us a very different perspective on it than you might typically find, because we're both, therapists and we know the traditional therapy approaches to things. Mm-hmm. So if you were going to say one thing about how you look at PTSD and how you look at, because actually, let's take it broader. We started out with PTSD, but really this show, it's about where you keep going back to something again and again and again. And that could be as simple as, a fight you had with your spouse that you can't let go of, or as big as, full-blown PTSD with hypervigilance and flashbacks and anxiety and all kinds of stuff. So.
Right. Yes. So, one of the biggest things for me that's such a gift of the access tools is to begin questioning everything, like questioning, do I really have to keep looping back to the same thing? And, I've had several times I can think of, or several things in my life I could think of, which maybe weren't even that traumatic, but those things that did stick with me of, where someone was judging me, or just, those, like kids are really mean, so like the sixth grade girl who made me cry, or the, whatever those things are that we keep looping back about. The access tools have provided a variety of different ways to kind of break that cycle and also undo the significance of it, which to me is a huge thing. Yeah. So for me, this has been a really key thing, personally, and it's just makes such a world of difference for everyone I work with, is how much significance have I been placing on past events? And part of that looping back and looking at the same thing over and over and never letting go is because I made something about it really significant and meaningful. And in whatever way, it could be that I thought the person cared about me and I realized what they're doing is not caring, or, it could be a million of different things. But just that one aspect of how did I personally make it significant, or meaningful, to me or about me, when maybe it didn't have anything to do with me. Or even if it did have something to do with me, making it significant with that too. It's like any way you look at it, any kind of significance, basically is something that I found stuck me for a really long time. And, with the access tools of questioning things, I started to wonder, what would happen if I stopped making those things significant?
Yeah. Well, so just as an example, I'm someone who had fairly traumatic stuff happened when I was a kid. And in my early 30s, I was, full-blown post-traumatic stress, having flashbacks, hypervigilance, anxious, depressed, suicide, the whole gamut of all that wonderful stuff.
Right. Oh, the joy.
And I did a whole lot of therapy and energy work and all kinds of things, and actually undid most of it. But what I remember from that time was I defined myself as I'm someone who's, I have to get through this. I have to process it. It's like everything about me was oriented around the trauma and recovering from it.
Yeah.
And in a way you could think, oh, well, you need to do that to get through it, or, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then that whole idea of it keeps, even when I was a whole lot, quote, recovered from it, it would cycle back, things would trigger something, mm-hmm. and a few years later and stuff. And once I got the access tools, it's it was gone. All the buttons that could get pushed, the re-stimulating the old stuff. It's I recall it, I remember it, I know what happened, but there is no problem. There's no significant.
Yeah, no charge on it.
There's no charge on it. And that's the thing that I think is so different about the work you do, where that I've never seen any other kind of modality that can so take it away.
Well, yeah. And it's so magical. And I get so excited about that, that I guess let's backtrack a little bit. So I'm sure you've talked about this tons on your show, but how everything hasn't.
Before you backtrack, we have 15 seconds before the commercial.
Oh,
so hold that thought.
I will.
And when we come back, we'll talk more about have you noticed you keep going backwards. And if you guys would like to find out more about Heather, you can check out her website, Heather P, and that's the letter P as in Paul, Smith.com. And we will be back in just a few minutes.
Feed your soul with waves of consciousness on OMTimes Radio.
Matt Connerton here. Join Jen Coffey and I twice a week for Matt Connerton Unleashed, a political talk show that's a little different than what you're used to. No liberal or conservative agenda here, just an honest dialogue about truth and how things really work in the world of politics. Matt Connerton Unleashed, every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Being a radio host on IOM-FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the Internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. Are you trying to get from point A to point B and need a little advice? Connect with the counselors at OMTimes Advisors. Whether you're looking for a life coach or a spiritual intuitive, the advisors participating at advisors.omtimes.com were carefully chosen based on their gifts, skills, and professionalism. OMTimes Advisors, connecting you with the best advisors in the business.
Hi, this is Angela Levesque, host of Entanglement Radio. Join me Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern for inspiring conversations with visionaries in spiritual science and conscious healing. Entanglement Radio, Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern. Transcendent talk for the conscious mind.
Bringing you the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio, your conscious lifestyle on steroids.
welcome back, everybody, to The Irreverent Therapist. I'm Pam Hoteling, and with me is my guest, Heather P. Smith. We're talking about, have you noticed you keep going backwards? I just want to let everyone know, if you have questions for us that you'd like to ask us during the show, you can go to The Irreverent Therapist Facebook page. Just go to Facebook, search on The Irreverent Therapist, and you will find us, and just add a post there on the event or just under the posts, and we will find it and get your question. So Heather, right before the break, you were about to talk about something, and then I made you stop. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So, one of the gifts of Access tools that you were also talking about is the possibility to truly change something like post-traumatic stress that just seems so unchangeable, and truly have it be different, have it be gone, have it be a lot less than it was. And so for me, part of the whole journey of not being at the effect of any post-traumatic stress symptoms, as I said, part of that was letting go of the significance of the past that I was really diligently holding on to. And the other aspect, though, that really is so different with the Access tools is addressing the energy of everything. And, when I first was learning about energy, it was pretty woo-woo. And it was familiar to me and stuff, but it's like, how can changing the energy of something really change, when I'm triggered, or when I'm going down the rabbit hole with hypervigilance, or just feeling so stuck? It's like, how could that be practical? But I started to play with stuff energetically, and I found it to be the most practical, pragmatic thing available. And how it is pragmatic and practical is that when you change the energy of something, you change how it shows up in your life. So, for example, when I was making my dad's anger significant, that has a particular energy to it. So my willingness to start dropping the significance that I'd placed on it, or the meaning that I'd placed on it, and just letting it go, for example, began to shift the energy. So there's a million different ways that Access Consciousness has for shifting the energy, which is another thing that I love. It's like, there's not just one, there's like a whole toolbox.
See, you're anticipating my question, because I was going to say, okay, so say someone's listening and they're right. Okay, I get what you're saying about how, if I make it significant, that's not helping me. Yeah. How do I not make it significant? So, say you take me back years ago when my whole life was revolving around healing from being abused. How do I make that not significant when to me at the time it was everything significant? It was thing in my life.
Right, totally. So one of the things a lot of people want to do is they want to go to the extreme opposite and just make it totally insignificant. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't work.
Okay.
Just like ignoring it, throwing it out the window, making it really insignificant doesn't work. That's doing like the polar opposite, and it is a way to actually still keep it in place. So letting go of significance is really, it's been a while. I'm trying to think of how I really began with that. Well, so I started to ask myself, do I really want to have this past event that was like, say 10 years ago, really rule my life this much? Like I did the same thing you did, Pam. I spent years, thousands of hours and years working on stuff and working on getting over it and undoing it and things like that. Yeah. And focusing on it all and making it significant kept perpetuating it in my day-to-day life. So as I chose to just let go of the significance, and not from trying to get away from it, but I guess more from like lowering my barriers to it. that was how it began. It's like, I really, truly question that. Do I really want this to run my life? And I got to the point where, no, I didn't wish to live this way anymore. And, honestly, I got a lot of mileage out of the trauma and drama of my past for a long time. It gave me all sorts of stuff to talk about. It gave me connections with, friends I had who'd also been through trauma and drama. It had a different kind of significance than when I was going through it. But that was part of the significance of it too, is how I was functioning with it as the basis of my reality day in and day out. And so that question of, am I willing to make the choice to let go of this being the total focus of my reality?
Yeah.
And everything that I think about, talk about, feel and emote about, and just swim in. It's like a pond I was swimming in, but I was choosing to swim in that pond every day.
Right.
Rather than like, wow, I wonder what else I could choose besides swimming in all this.
I mean, maybe there's something besides crap to swim in.
Right. And you were kind of asking, like, how did you do that? Or how do you even go there? And it's not a question of how, it's just, you start to choose something different.
Yeah. And
that courage and that willingness to choose something different, even though you don't even know what else to choose different.
Yes.
Just, I'm going to find something different to choose, even if it's like not dwelling on something that I usually dwell on for hours. Okay, I'm only going to dwell on it for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to let it go.
Right.
It may seem little, but that's actually a huge, huge choice.
Well, and I think that idea of choice, it's like, you don't have to know. Like, people go to, well, what do I choose? Tell me what to choose that would be not this, and then I'll choose it. It's like, it's not that kind of choice. You don't have to know what it is that you're going to choose. It's saying, it doesn't work for me to keep dwelling in this. There's got to be something else possible. Whatever that is, I choose it.
Yeah.
And
so a way that I started to choose different with that was, what else can I add to my life? Which also is the access question. And I actually started to use that before I ever found access. It was like, okay, so what else could I choose besides dwelling on this event? Is that one thing, like and it doesn't matter what you choose, just anything different. And you know what that is. You know what you've been thinking over and over again. You know what you've been focusing on over and over again. You know what you've been reliving over and over again. You know what you've been doing and choosing. So you also know what would be really different than that.
Yes.
So I'd say, for people to maybe trust themselves that just that one seemingly little thing of choosing something different than they have been, what if that is enough? Like, what if that is actually something viable that can begin to change the energy of your everyday life?
Well, and say more about changing the energy, because, a lot of people are like, energy? What are you talking about? What is it when you change the energy of something, and why does that help you change everything else so much faster?
Well, I look at it this way. So, like, if we've been choosing the same thing over and over and over again, the same point of view or the same action, that has a particular energy to it. So the moment we choose something that's a totally different thing in a different direction and a different focus or different, that is a different energy. So the more you choose it, the more it will bring in those different energies to your life. So it's kind of like all of your choices that have that same energy is like a ship going in one direction. And you make one new choice that's a different direction, a different energy. It starts to turn the direction that ship is heading. And it may only be the smallest degree, it may only be half a degree, but that half a degree, if you keep going in 1,000 miles, it's going to be, 1,000 miles divergent from where you had been going.
Yes. Like in that moment, as you start to go forward, it doesn't seem that different from where you just were. But as you keep going, it's hugely divergent from where you've been.
Yeah. So that's really the how of it. I mean, it actually is that simple. And I know that's like blasphemy too. It's like,
it doesn't have to take years and years and thousands of dollars in psychotherapy to change things.
Not really. Darn it. All that money. Yeah, I mean, it is the everyday things that do make the difference. I mean, our choices are that powerful. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I wish, more therapists and counselors really recognized and encouraged and honored, rather than trying to relive the past and get all the emotions out. What if we could just start choosing new things that would bring in a new energy and go in a different direction.
But see, this is such a different idea than anything out there, that you can just choose different. You don't have to rehash everything and relive everything and process everything and work through everything. And I mean, doesn't that just sound like so much work?
Yeah, choosing one new thing a day is so much easier. It's unbelievably easier. And, for me, that was one of the other indications too of it being really different, is that it's like I took the struggle of PTSD and, like you began the show with, I transformed that into struggle with getting over PTSD. And that wasn't really any different. I did the same thing. Yeah, right. It's like and that's a great example, though, of keeping the same level of energetic intensity that the PTSD was, just in a new form, maybe new people and new circumstances.
Right, rather than just getting rid of it. On that, we're going to go to a break, and we will be back in just a couple of minutes with Heather P. Smith, and we're talking about, have you noticed you keep going backwards?
The best of holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Come heal yourself. What is healing? Healing is nothing but connecting to your all-knowing higher self that already has solutions to all your problems and is always there to guide you. Through this show, we help you to connect with that you are, and help you realize the innate potential you have to heal every aspect of your life. So come heal yourself every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Eastern, with your host, Monica Goyal. Namaste.
Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. Have you ever wondered how to change your love paradigm? The secret key is finding a love partnership, not just a regular connection. How do you find these? Through conscious relationships. Ascending Hearts Dating is a dating site for people like you that believes in second chances and a different type of spiritual connection. Try Ascending Hearts for free today at ascendinghearts.com and change your love paradigm. Ascending Hearts, the premier dating community for the spiritually awake.
Do you have time to read that inspiring book or that blog post you've been meaning to get to? In your busy world, how do you improve yourself and keep your life going? I'm Lisa Kay, and my Between Heaven and Earth radio show can transform your life just by listening. Be uplifted with inspiring topics, positive stories, and ideas that really work. Between Heaven and Earth Radio is conscious living for your soul, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
And welcome back, everybody, to the Irreverent Therapist. I'm Pam Hodeling, and with me today is guest Heather Smith. We're talking about, have you noticed you keep going backwards? So, Heather, during the break, what I was thinking about is, whether it's, the trauma of being sexually abused when you were a kid, or growing up in an abusive family, or seeing somebody killed in front of you, that kind of thing where, people go, oh boy, that's serious drama. Or even something like, like you were talking about, the kid who when you were little, who said something really judgmental and it stuck with you. It's like, what I was thinking about is how we try to then avoid whatever that is happening again. So, with full PTSD, it's like avoidance of the kind of stimuli that were similar and the cues and things like that. But it can be as simple as choosing not to be close with someone when you've gotten so badly hurt from being close to someone before. So I was wondering if we could talk about that.
I'd love to. Yeah. That's a huge thing. And, I also did that for a lot of my life. And again, that was another aspect of like, wow, do I really want to live this way? That's getting to be a long list of things to avoid.
Not leave the house.
Yeah, exactly. So I was just going to say, pretty soon I'm never going to leave. And so the most powerful tool I found for that really went against every instinct and everything I wanted to choose. And that was simply to lower my barriers in the face of whatever was going on.
Okay, say more. Tell people what that means.
Yeah. So, so for example, with how intense my dad was all the time, I spent a lot of time trying to avoid situations that had anything close to that same kind of intensity of anger or upset, or tone of voice, or, anything like that, right? It was like a trigger for me. So, I'd try to avoid it. And if I couldn't avoid it, it instantly would go down that rabbit hole, or that, trail of triggers, that I would shut down and try to close myself off and contract all my energy and get really upset and have hours or days or even weeks to try and get out of it again. Right?
Yeah.
We're all familiar with that, right?
I hear ya.
Yeah. So, we have such a desire to protect ourselves from that and not go through it again. But by that desire to protect and try to get away from it and all the wrongness of the other person and us, and why do I go through this, and why is this happening again, and why did it happen in the first place, and just all of that, we put up our barriers, and it seems like a really good idea, and it seems like a really effective way to try and function in the world. And yet I know in my own life, like I said, it started to put me in a corner where there was less and less stuff I wanted to do out in the world, or interact with people, or chance that kind of intensity, coming up again.
Right.
So what I did, which, like I said, I'll kind of describe it. So I think that would be the best example. So I was in a situation where all of my barriers were up. I was someone had that upset and that tone of voice that always triggered me into going into putting my dukes up and my barriers up and wanting to fight and wanting to run away all at the same time. So in the face of that, with all of that up, all of that, fear and anxiety and stress and the crazy thoughts going through the head and everything, I stood there and I demanded of myself that I lower all of my barriers to all of it, all the energy, all the points of view, everything, the emotions, just all of it, just lower my barriers. And frankly, the first time I did it in the face of the things that most triggered me, I thought for sure I'm going to drop dead right here in the moment.
So you were making a choice and it was not an easy choice in the moment.
No, it was not. Like I said, it went against everything, my instincts were telling me I should choose. So
actually, let me just jump in here a second, because some people might be like, what do you mean by barriers? And so if you imagine, like, say you actually had armor, like a shield, right? So putting your barriers up is putting that shield up, like, I am not going to let anything get through here, but you also can't see anything past that shield. It's kind of blocking you and stuff. And, the barriers are all the ways in which you put up resistance, you put up a wall, basically put anything up that separates you from everyone else, everything else, whatever's going on. And when Heather says drop your barriers, it's like literally you just say, okay, barriers down. And you don't have to know what the barriers are. You don't have to identify them. You don't have to talk about them in therapy. You just barriers down and they're gone and they'll go down.
Yeah. And you know what it's like when your barriers are up. I mean, we're all familiar with that. Like, no way anyone's getting in here. I'm not feeling that. I'm not looking at that. I'm not doing that. They're not going to touch me, in whatever form we have. So if we know what barriers are when they're up, we don't always have our barriers up. We also know what it's like when they're down, when we, like when we're out in nature and we're just totally relaxed. We totally can be ourselves. We don't feel like we have to hide anything. We don't have to feel like we have to protect anything. That's when our barriers are down. We're just there. We're being us. It feels good. That's our barriers down.
Yeah.
So when I made that demand of myself to lower my barriers in the face of what I thought for sure would kill me or destroy me or I could never withstand, when I did it, I hung out for a few minutes and lo and behold, I didn't drop dead.
Cool. You weren't struck by lightning either.
No, I wasn't. And I mean, we're making a joke about it. Yeah. We were joking about it and laughing, but it was a total revelation. I was like, no way. That didn't kill me. It didn't destroy me. I could actually live through that intensity.
Yeah.
And it was a revelation. And from that first time that I did it, when it took everything I had to lower those barriers, and I thought for sure I'm going to die right here if I lower the barriers. And I found out I didn't. I learned that, oh my God, that energy isn't as powerful as I'd been making it.
Yeah.
It wasn't as significant as I'd been making it. What if, wow, it wasn't the big bad monster I had made it into.
And what I love about that, it's like when when that intensity is there and you put the barriers up, it's like it hits you. It's like it hits you more. If you think about like what do they call it? The turbulence when the spaceship is coming through the atmosphere and everything's shaking and stuff like that. Right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you drop your barriers, there's nothing for that intensity to get to hit into. It just goes right on by you.
It does. Yeah, it's amazing. And that's such a it's like until you're willing to choose it for yourself, you may not really get it. But once you do it and you choose it and you go through it and you get onto the other side, you're going to be amazed. Like, oh my God, I don't have to defend myself like this anymore with this. It's just an energy.
Well, and to me, what, talking about barriers, what always for me comes up with that is when you have your barriers up, your awareness is cut off. Like I can remember this was before I got introduced to Access. I was working with a craniosacral guy, and we were talking about like how I would feel if I was having to walk down a dark street alone at night and that kind of thing, because that used to be like terrifying for me. And he was talking to me about, what if you actually trust your awareness, that it's not, you cannot walk down a dark street at night. It's ask yourself questions and be aware of, right now in this 10 seconds, is this a street to walk down, or am I going to go another way? And that kind of being introduced to that idea of, I can be aware. I don't have to like maneuver everything to keep myself safe. I can ask questions, be aware, and know when to look out for things and when I'm okay.
Right. So another example of the same thing is that when I had my barriers up, I couldn't see the upset coming. It would always surprise me. And I would always be like, what? How did that happen? How did I end up here again? Where when I started to lower my barriers, I was aware of it way before and had so many more choices. Like you were just saying, of walking down the alley, I didn't have to walk into it blindly anymore. I could notice it, and I had more choices than either blindly going into it or running away. I had so many more choices that I like, oh, okay, I can lower my barriers now before I even go into it.
Yeah.
And that might change it. Or I can see what's coming and say something different, be something different, not be there.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Whatever. It's like, it opens up the number of choices available from awareness, instead of reaction and instead of avoidance and protection. It's a different world.
And it takes you out of that, it's just that energy of trying to control everything to make sure you're going to be okay, which is a huge amount of work and doesn't actually work.
Right.
It's a space of ease and awareness and choice where it's like you can just show up and be and
totally different.
And maybe enjoy and have a great life.
Yeah. No way.
And not be just all about the trauma. So we will be back again in a few minutes with more talking with Heather Smith.
Your conscious connection to a more mindful world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Circle of Hearts Radio is a sanctuary on the airwaves. Join me, Grandmother Elia, in the circle on Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern as I share information to both enlighten and nourish your soul.
Being a radio host on IOM FM allows you to build your show on a rich platform with the power of the internet to fulfill your outreach goals and connect with a very specialized and global online audience, unlimited by time and distance. OMTimes Radio will provide you with web relevance, a recognizable conscious brand, and with the standard of excellence that has accompanied every single OMTimes endeavor. Host your show with OMTimes Radio Network. As difficult as it is to believe, there are places in Africa where human traffickers sell albino children and their body parts for use in magic rituals. Humanity Healing International is actively working in Uganda to change this paradigm. The Albino Rescue Project finds albino children who are at risk and places them in safe schools and environments where they can learn and grow free from fear. To learn more or to sponsor a child, visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
Live with medium Lisa Phoenix, Mediumship Messages and Musings, explores mediumship and all things metaphysical. Lisa Phoenix invites you to reach above and beyond your everyday experiences, to explore new dimensions in the spirit world. She will do live readings to connect callers to their loved ones in spirit, shares engaging stories and teachings from her own personal experience, and will have intriguing conversations with other mediums, spiritual teachers, and healers to help you understand the metaphysical world so you can connect to these forces in your day-to-day life. Join your host on this magical and metaphysical journey into the world of spirit every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time.
The Real Conscious Connection. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back, everybody, to The Irreverent Therapist. I'm Pam Hodeling, and my guest today is Heather P. Smith, and we are talking about, have you noticed you keep going backwards? So, Heather, the other thing I wanted to bring up is, I'm trying to think of how to talk about this. Mm-hmm. When we were talking a couple of segments ago about like significance and how do you stop making it significant when you've made your whole life about recovering from, working through, overcoming, whatever it is that you've mm-hmm. had going on. And for me, like a key part of that was I can remember I used to feel like I was at the effect of everyone and everything. It's like that, I didn't have any ability. I didn't think I had any ability to change things, that I was kind of at the mercy of whatever life was throwing at me. And, somehow in all the years mm-hmm. of therapy and all the energy work and everything I did, I changed from that to like coming out of being the victim of everything and to knowing that I can actually create what I would like to create my life as, and that I don't have to be the effect of anything. So I just wanted to make sure we address that in some way. What?
Yeah. Well, it was a process for me too, to get to that. And, actually everything that we've talked about on this show so far contributed to that, not being at the effect. I mean, I can't stress enough what a difference it made for me, to make that choice to start lowering my barriers to everything that I thought I had to avoid. Because that was a big part of it. I was so at the effect of everyone else, that choice to lower my barriers started to make it so I wasn't anymore. I didn't have to avoid that kind of upset. I also didn't have to be around it. I can't stress enough how much more choice I started to get by that one thing of lowering my barriers over and over and over and over again, when I thought I couldn't. And how that started to build that space in my life to not be at the effect of things and other people. Yeah. So it was actually a practical step and choice to creating that in my life. I wonder what else we could say about that though too. I mean, there is more, but it's.
Well, so, I mean, kind of, to me, everything we've been talking about, like, it comes down to, in this moment, what do I choose? Right? Yeah. In this moment, I can choose the space, and, you've been talking about the energy of things. I can choose to be the energy of, all this stuff happened to me, this is terrible, it's got to have scarred me for life, I'm trying to get over it. I'm working really hard to get over it. I don't know for everybody else, but for me, just saying all that is like, oh my God, that's so heavy. That's so stuck and so hard to overcome.
Right. So I love it. That actually totally gave me the information of where we could go next with that. That's awesome. So, which is that thing of our point of view creates our reality.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a quote from Dr. Dane here, who's the co-creator of Access Consciousness. And it is so true. Oh my God. So if you have the point of view that you are at the effect of everyone, that's exactly what you create. If you have the point of view of all the stuff, you know, Pam, that you were just saying, of it's hard, it's got to take forever, I can't truly change it, I can't truly get over it.
I can heal, but it'll always be there scarring me.
Right. Those are actually all points of view. And we actually choose to have that as a point of view. And I know, I mean, that just sounds like, what? No way. I didn't choose to think that. That's just how it is. You know, that's my experience of life. That's what I know to be true because I lived through that. And that's how it was, right? I didn't choose that. I didn't create that. I'm totally at the effect of it. So for me in my own life, I started to question that. I started to question my own points of view. And I didn't have any idea of what other point of view I could have. I just took things like that, like, oh my God, it's always going to trigger me when someone's angry. There's no other way. I don't see any other way that I could be, right? That was my point of view for a very long time. So I started to question it like, wow, I wonder if it would be possible to not be at the effect of that. I wonder what it would take. I wonder what that would be like. I wonder, like, what else is possible that I never considered. And it, like, those open-ended questions that are not looking for an answer, but are from the curiosity of like, wow, I see that I've been doing this over and over. I see that I've had this point of view over and over. I wonder what other point of view I could have about this.
Yeah.
And just that one question, again, it's so simple, but it's absolutely life-changing.
Yes.
And for me in my own life, I started doing that with every single point of view that I had. And I would do stuff like, I'd totally play with it. So like with my dad, you know, for years and years, I thought a lot of his upset was something I did. You know, I had no idea
You mean it's all your fault.
Right, exactly. Sure, there's something wrong with me that I made him upset. Even though he was gone all day, I was playing, I was cleaning my room, I was doing my chores.
You missed a speck of dust, that made him upset. That's why it's your fault.
Right, so I had, you know, something like that. That was really real to me, that there must be something that I did to cause his upset, right?
Right.
So I questioned that. I'm like, wow, I wonder if it wasn't just me that caused the upset. I wonder what was upsetting him. Like for a long time, because they didn't talk about it, I had no story. I had no history. I had no like reference point for what was going on. So as a kid, of course, you make it about you.
Right,
you know?
right.
Your life is about you. So, so when I started to truly question that, like, wow, I've totally thought it was something I've done a lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of it. So I wonder what other point of view I could have about that. And just that willingness to, again, let go of how hard I was holding on to that point of view being true. When I let it go, it started to shift the energy and started to open up me being able to be aware of other things that I wasn't aware of before. My parents aren't really liking each other so much these days.
Maybe that has something to do with his anger.
Yeah. Oh, my dad had like 38 years before, or 36 years before I was born, of experiences in life and things going on that I have no idea what they are, but, you know, probably something dramatic. You know, but it started to open up awareness of what else was going on in my dad's life that I didn't notice before. I didn't consider because I was a little kid, and now I'm an adult and I can, recall different things that were going on, or like, oh yeah, he totally did not get along with his dad whatsoever.
Yeah.
That it's like all of the pieces that had been missing to kind of understand what was going on, I could start to be aware of just by letting go of that one thing that it was all my fault that he's upset.
Right. And by changing your point of view, you started to change your reality and how you were showing up and how your life was being created.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it does sound simple, and it is.
Well, that's what I love about these tools, because you're using these tools that are incredibly simple and easy to use. And it's all about, here's a moment. What do I choose? Do I choose to try something different? And you're applying that to PTSD, which, most people think of as being so entrenched, so unchangeable, so, just unwieldy. But you can actually change so much so quickly with these tools.
Yeah. And gently too. It's like there's a gentleness and a nurturing to not working so hard to defend everything and lowering your barriers instead.
Yeah.
To questioning, oh wow, what if I didn't have this point of view that I'm totally wrong and it's all my fault? Yeah. What if I let that go? Like there's a kindness and a gentle and nurturing with these tools that for me was a big part of the healing of all that past trauma and the changing of being at the effect. Things did slam into me. People's realities and lives and points of view did slam me a lot. And when I started to lower the barriers and question these things and question my own point of view, and make new choices, there was so much more gentleness that came into my world. And that's continued to expand and increase, day by day, and really as quickly as I was willing to allow it.
Cool. Well, and actually, Heather, that's the end of our time. So I want to tell people real quick, you can find Heather online at www.heatherpsmith.com. I didn't even get to mention your books. She's a published author. So check out her website. And next week, we'll be talking about, is your favorite superhero Patheto Man? So Marilyn and I'll be back next week to talk with you about that. Bye, everybody. And
thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks.